Good morning, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar. We are EBS, your experienced technology partner, and we've been in business for over 45 years. We specialize in the deployment of Sage Business Management and Microsoft solutions, managed services, and secure on-premises and cloud-based infrastructure. My name is Darren Tolley, and I'm one of the account managers here at EBS. Today, we are joined by Sicon, who we've partnered with for many years. Sicon are a Sage tech partner and provide a wide range of innovative solutions for Sage 200. I would like to extend a warm welcome to Chris Donlan, our partner account manager, who will give us an overview, good morning, of Sicon Manufacturing, which is fully immersed within Sage 200 Professional. For any of you still utilizing the Sage 200 legacy manufacturing, this is particularly relevant following Sage's announcement that the old modules will no longer be available following the release of version 2025 R2, expected towards the end of this year. We are recording today's presentation and we'll make this available to you in the next few days. There are lots of recordings on our YouTube channel. Remember to hit subscribe to receive notifications when we load new videos. If you have any questions, please put them in the chat, or there will be an opportunity at the end of the presentation in the Q&A session. So that's enough from me. I'll pass you over to Chris. Morning, Chris.
Good morning, Darren. Nice to see you again, and a warm welcome to everybody who's on the call with us today. So it's my job to give you a high-level overview of works orders and material resource planning, which is my aim in today's session. But I'm going to start by just sharing my screen because I'd just like to give you a little bit of an insight into how wide-ranging the Sicon Manufacturing products actually are. So I'm hoping that you can see our website. This is totally public-facing, so sicon.co.uk. You don't need to register. We're not tracking what anyone's doing. But if you get to the landing page, click on products, then over here you'll see a column of manufacturing items. As I say, we are going to focus on works orders and MRP, but you'll notice that there's also a kitting option. Might be useful for those people who certainly package and distribute kits maybe. There's also a shop floor data capture option, which is quite innovative. And this enables your shop floor people, you're on the production floor, to be able to tap in to a works order and actually log their real-time engagement on an operational process that they may be involved with. So might be worth a secondary look, perhaps. The great thing about all these modules is that although they are all designed to talk with each other, of course, you can bring them on in a phased approach. Okay. The other module which sits slightly left of this is barcoding and warehouse. So again, if you've got an environment where you'd like your stores people to book in stock, issue it to the shop floor, no doubt sell and dispatch the finished product to your customers, then that is another very exciting feature-rich module that you might want to consider. But as I say, we are going to look at works orders in MRP. When you click on any one of the products, then you will have access over here to our right to a YouTube video channel, and inside the case study area, you'll find that there's some people that have been on a journey which we're hoping some of you on the call will want to embark on, and that's basically a breakdown as to what the experience was like for those people coming on to the Sicon Manufacturing products. And also we have other videos that you can watch back in your own time, which are just very high level, short 5-10 minute reviews of the product as well. So let's get into the product itself and give you a look around. Now, the first thing to say, which I think is very important, especially when people are considering changing from their existing environment, which I'm no doubt you've all been very comfortable with and it's worked for you. But the main thing to point out here is that we don't replace, okay, any of the stock that you've got no doubt compiled and listed into your system. Okay, so whatever's in there, it's all working for you, it's all up to date and accurate. That's great. Okay, and the second, perhaps equally more important asset is the fact that in the bill of materials, okay, that you have got the benefit of your existing BOM structures, which can be brought into play as well. So with stock and BOM, you're virtually more than halfway there to being able to use the Sicon system. One of the things I think it's probably important for me to mention before we just delve in to have a look around is that because Sage are end of lifing their legacy manufacturing system, Sicon products, by the way, do sit in the Sage marketplace arena. So if you were looking at this brand new, then it's the Sicon product that is the one that Sage have a preference to helping you bring on board. Okay, and certainly Darren and the team at EBS are very experienced in this arena, so they'll be able to handhold you through to a successful conclusion with your project. Which also, by the way, reminds me, before I forget my manners, that there is also a link to the projects module here as well. So if you've got a bigger, more involved manufacturing environment, and that may mean taking something to somebody's site perhaps and installing it and configuring it and setting it up, then obviously you might want to have a project management module that can assist you with that as well. And that again comes under potentially the manufacturing umbrella. Okay. So back into Sage, and if we start our little journey here by looking inside of works orders, the great thing about Sicon products, because we are so connected to the Sage 200 environment, all our products have the same look and feel as Sage. So I'm sure many of you will be aware of this cascaded menu approach that Sage adopt in their modules. We adopt exactly the same thing. So the onboarding process, we hope, will be a lot easier and quicker than perhaps looking for something that potentially could sit outside of Sage. Another thing I think is important for me to mention while I just pull this works order up here is that Sage are offering some very attractive discount incentives, which I would heartily recommend, by the way, you talk to Darren and the team at EBS about. They are graduated, and there is a September, end of offer time limit that you need to bear in mind. So, best thing is talk to them early, maximize the discount potential that you would be entitled to have as you transition away from your legacy Sage system onto Sicon. So this bill of this works order, sorry, that we've got on the screen here, it originates from a bill of material. Okay, and with that bill of material, there will be no doubt a set of operations that you would have in place. So setup, runtime, tear down, all the elements that go into what the time and production involvement is going to look like. You will also no doubt quantify some labor that's associated with that, different people that are involved in different parts of the process. Okay, so there could be cutters, assemblers, lathe operators, machine operators, and so on. Okay, so they will all be again stored inside your bill of material. You will also link those potentially to machines. Okay, and it's that connection between operation, labor, and machine that where shop floor actually embeds itself. Okay, so the idea behind that is that you will have a total cost estimate for your works order. Okay, in this case, I'm manufacturing a toaster. Okay, and what this is telling me is that the cost of labor anticipated is X pounds. Okay, but with shop floor, you could refine that understanding and get a much more accurate appraisal as to what it actually took to make this toaster in real time, okay, and use that information to help you get more accurate with your cost of production assessment. Just going back to the material list for a second. So when the works order is generated, the material will need to be allocated, okay, and then it can be issued, okay. It can be issued in bits. You can issue it as it's consumed, but as it's consumed, it's effectively going into work in progress, okay. So when we've finished issuing all the parts, we've gone through the processes of pulling it together, we can then book the finished stuff back into stock, okay. And it's at that point, obviously, that whatever's in the work in progress calculation results in assessing what the finished stock component or finished goods item is actually going to look like, okay. As part of the feature setting works orders, what I particularly like is the ability for you to be able to, instead of amending the bill of material, you can actually edit the works order. So if you wanted to modify this works order slightly, you can edit any of the particular lines. You can remove component lines from that works order, and you can also add in something. So if you want to customize something for a particular order and it's reserved for a customer, okay, then you can do all of that without having to go back and change your BOM or make a revision to it, okay, especially if it's going to be a one-off, okay. If it's going to be something more repeatable, then clearly create a new bill of material here, okay. You could, in actual fact, use this to build up a works order estimate, okay. So start the works order off with nothing on the page at all, okay, and then start to add different components, add operations, add labor and machine, and then when you reach a point where the estimate gets accepted, then you can create your bill of material formally on the back of it. We will happily acknowledge and work with anything to do with traceability. So if you've got serial or batch number involvement, when you allocate and issue the stock, it will want you to confirm the batch or serial numbers that you're actually working with. When you finish making the finished goods, of course, the opposite will kick in and the system will want to know what the batch numbers or serial numbers are that are associated with that item that you've now finished making. Along the journey, you can introduce inspection areas. Again, they're controlled through your bill of material in Sage. So if you've already are used to using those, then we can bring those forward in here as well. And again, just mentioning quickly about shop floor, that can also be handled on the device, okay, which can either be a handheld device or the workers can walk up to a touch screen, punch in their PIN, and then follow the instructions regarding the inspection requirements. So works either way, okay. Another thing to mention about works orders before we move on a little bit further and take on board what MRP is going to bring to the mix is the fact that you noticed here, look, I've got WO, okay. Now this is a works order which has been generated as a need to make something for stock. Okay, so this is effectively an internal works order. You'll notice on this example line I've got here that we have a sort of a numerical interpretation of that. And what this is this is allied to a sales order. Okay, we're making the toasters, as you can see from this example, exclusively for Asda. Okay, so this allows us to embed the sales order reference with a hyphenated and then a follow-on number. Okay, so this is a dedicated works order that we're making for a customer. Okay, so that journey in actual fact would have started as a sales order. The system would have recognized that we haven't got the stock to service that sales order, so it will offer us the opportunity to generate the works order, which is exactly what's happened here. Okay. Another aspect to the setup of works orders, if I draw your attention to this area here, so you can either, as you know, in bill of materials, you can have multiple layers in the BOM structure. So sub-assemblies that then go into feeding into potentially other sub-assemblies, but eventually the finished item. Then you can either go through that process as in this one here, okay, which we were just looking at a second ago, which is all the sub-assemblies, all the components, all visible in one works order. Okay. Here, however, what I've elected to just sort of demonstrate is the fact that you can break down those sub-assembly needs into what we call sub-works orders. And that is the reason why you've got this /1/2/3 suffix involved with that works order. So these parts, these components, these sub-assemblies are actually built in phases, and they all perpetuate towards the finished item, of course, but there may be a better rationale that says I want these sub-works orders worked on by different people, different teams, okay, and you want to make sure that they are finished and ready before you then issue those sub-assemblies into the next layer of the process. So you can work either way. Okay. So just recapping, you can have internal works orders to make for stock, works orders that are made for a customer, and sub-works orders that are designed to break the works order down into multiple levels. Okay. So let me move on a little further down the line, and we're going to take a look at MRP. Quite a powerful feature, this particular module, and I'm sure you're used to using it in the legacy Sage arena, perhaps if you're people on the call that have got that. But here's another benefit of coming on board with Sicon. So our MRP will not just look at anything to do with Sicon works orders that you may need to be thinking about preparing and creating and running, but it can also look at your legacy Sage works orders. So the great thing about that is that you don't literally have to think, shut off Sage, switch on Sicon. Sicon and Sage can sit side by side on the same Sage environment, and you can gradually wean your way off from the Sage works order demand on you and gradually bring on board the Sicon works orders, and the system will look across both sides, which is really good. So let's have a look what this is going to reveal. The primary one that most people will want the system to do is to assess your stock levels, your works order demand, your customer forecasts, etc., and bring that picture together on one screen. Now, just in front of this demo, I did run an MRP, so I'm just going to show you what the results from that process look like. And I won't necessarily go through everything on here, but we'll touch in on it in bits. Let me just mention one very important thing. This MRP module, okay, is at least 15, if not 20 times faster than standard Sage. Okay, this will run at a meteoric rate. Okay, the second thing, almost as importantly, is that you can run this MRP as many times as you want. Okay, that might be several times in a day. And the great thing is nobody needs to step off from the Sage environment, which is a prerequisite, in fact, to you running it in standard Sage. So instead of running something and it takes a long time, I know quite a lot of people run Sage MRP overnight and they come in the following morning to sit down and look at the results and then discover perhaps that they might have forgotten to do something. And, you know, we have to wait till everybody comes out the system before we can run it again. So that just completely mitigates any of that frustration and people not being able to be in the system. So what you initially get, and please don't necessarily judge me on the quality of this data, it's demo data, things don't get finished or made, so it might look rather busy, but I don't want you necessarily worrying too much about that. So what it's basically trying to tell me here is that if I've not engaged with a works order in any way, then it's going to look at the timing of when I anticipate this works order to be ready by, and it's telling me I'm overdue. Okay, so we can either group these items together or we can list them, as you can see, individually. It may say that I've suggested you make an item for a customer's sales order, okay, but you've not enacted on that. Okay, so it again says it won't be built in time for when you said you were going to dispatch the goods to the customer. Okay. Another one might say you've not built something in time for a forecast. So if you want to either let us look back over your previous sales history and promote the idea of what you might need to be thinking about making for a sort of a seasonal period coming up, then you haven't acknowledged that suggestion, and therefore it won't be ready in time for your potential forecasted date. Looking a little bit further down, again, a lot of them, as I say, are to do with overdue. But if we look at this area here, which again usually is very relevant, very meaningful for what people want to use MRP for, then and we'll look at this again in a bit more detail further along the tab dialog screen here, then it's a way in which the suggested purchase orders, so here's a recommendation by the system, might be because you're at reorder level, might be worse, you might have dropped below your reorder level of that stock, but what it's doing is it's looking at that stock indication alongside what it's for. Okay, so if it says, okay, I think you need to buy some of this material, and the reason for that is because it needs to be coming in time to service a works order. In this case, as we've picked up on what we've said before, a works order that's directly connected to a sales order due to go out the door to a customer, then you won't be able to achieve that because you haven't yet raised the purchase order with that supplier. Okay, so they're basically just warnings based on things that have been previously suggested that you haven't necessarily followed through. Okay, let's have a look at some of the other tabs. If you're an organization on the call and you've got stock in multiple warehouses, okay, now these could be physical or virtual, as far as it doesn't matter to me, but again, it might determine where people are going, which warehouse can handle that works order. Okay, we've got more stock in this warehouse, so let's prioritize that warehouse for the processing of those works orders as opposed to others which don't have necessarily the same level of demand. So again, we can make suggested stock transfers. So you are overpopulated in stock here, needs to be in this warehouse. So here's where we can make recommendations, and those stock movements can then just be carried out in a batch manner. Moving on to, again, those organizations that are on the call that might be needing to have a more contained approach to traceability, then if there are batch or serial numbered items that have, as in this instance, have gone beyond their sell by date, so they're probably perishable, okay, then we can identify those and say, well, these need to be removed from your stock records because you can't really use them. Another variation on that, of course, might be that they could be beyond their manufacturer's warranty. So would you want to bring components into a build where potentially there's a risk of failure? Okay, so again, we can draw attention to those kind of batch attributes that might need to be or relevant to what you're doing. We can also look at, for those people that are involved in kitting, You heard me talk about that module briefly earlier. Then again, we can say, well, look, you are low on certain kits. Okay, so therefore, let's make a recommendation to say, I think you need to build X number of these kits to bring yourself back up to a minimum kit level. Okay, and what's the justification? These are sales orders. Okay, so again, they could just be built for stock. Okay, or they could be built for works orders or sales orders. Suggested works orders, this is what some of the complaints were about earlier on in the warning section. Okay, so these are the recommendations by the system, and over here on the right, okay, you can see what the justification is. So you need to make this for these sales orders, you need to make this for these internal works orders, you may need to make it for a forecast, as you can see here, you might need to make them just for minimum stock. So these are potentially sub-assemblies that the system thinks you use these quite a lot in potentially what might be a lot of different product. So therefore, I'm making the recommendation that you get these created and generated. Okay. The next one I'm just going to touch in on as well, which is quite important, is suggested purchase orders. In each of these cases, by the way, I simply need to basically select all or selectively tick the works orders or purchase orders that I want to run with. Okay, and in the case of this purchase orders being, as we've just ticked these boxes, over here on the right hand side you can see create purchase orders. Armed with a few other little bits of Sicon sort of product set, then those purchase orders can not only just be generated, okay, into Sage, we can also send them out the door. Okay, so we can actually get them automatically emailed, okay, to the target recipients of those purchase orders, so contacts that are set up on your supplier records to receive them. Okay, so nobody needs to remember, have I done that? Okay, so we can not only create them, we can get them sent out the door on an email. Okay, that's maybe worth knowing. But effectively what we're saying here is that, again, the system's saying, look, you are running low on these particular items. This is the quantity I think you ought to be considering to buy. And what might dominate that, of course, is minimum order level, usual order level. Okay, whatever the data is that you've got inside your stock records. Okay, if you've gone to the trouble of making those known to the system, then the MRP can actually pick up on that and say, well, I know you're only 50 off from reorder, but the minimum order level might be 200, so you need to buy them in that kind of quantities. And again, justification over here on the right, as you can see, is why I'm suggesting that you need to buy this volume. You can always step on to any of these products lines and put your own preference as to what you actually want to buy. If you know something that the system doesn't, you can also change who you buy it from. Okay, so these supplier names that are cropping up here, this is because inside the stock record in Standard Sage, you can have, as you may know, a number of different supplier relationships for the same item, but one of them will be flagged as being preferable. So that is where MRP is grabbing this name from. But maybe for reasons of being out of stock, I may need to buy them from somebody else. But if I do buy them from somebody else, of course, I've now got to indicate what the price each that I've agreed with that supplier for him or her to send them to me. Okay, so you can make your own changes. You can add to your suggested purchase orders because you might want to group them together. So it might be better for you to order, for example, a lot of stock items from a common supplier. Let's look at this BGT one here, for example. So much better for you to group that purchase order together because you'll probably get a better rate of purchase. You may, instead of being individually packaged and dispatched, it might be more cost effective for them to be grouped together and supplied in bulk. Okay, so things like that the system can help you with, okay, and gain better value for your price point on delivery. I can also look at, for example, stock item balances. Let's have a quick look at this. So I can see where in my warehouse where my stock consumption actually takes place. I can look at that at quite a detailed level. I can look at my monthly trading figures for those stock items as well. Okay, so lots of easy to grab access to information around the entire piece here as well. So when, as I say, when you are ready to proceed, it's simply a question, as I say, of just ticking what you want to move ahead with and creating your purchase orders. Okay. By the way, all of that information is immediately exportable to Excel. Just right click, send to Excel. You might want to take that with you, sit down and discuss it with a group of people inside or outside of your business operation, and they might not have access to Sage. So you've got all the granular level detail with you on a spreadsheet for you to all share and look around as well. That can be quite useful. Another aspect to MRP doesn't necessarily have to be switched on, but it comes as part of the product, is something I'd just like to have a look at here, and it's called capacity planning. So if you're going to go to the trouble of allowing the system to be aware of what your employee and machine resource looks like, okay, so a machine that's capable of processing number of hundreds of items, say an hour or a day, then if that machine is booked up in advance well enough, then if you bring in another works order, the capacity planning will say, you won't be able to run that and get it ready by, I don't know, Friday, because this machine is booked solid for that part of the process. So again, the idea here is to allow you to be able to schedule, okay, in advance a number of works orders and operations and machines and the association of the employment resource that you have available to work on those orders. So let's just run a quick rough cut to give you an idea. So what we would have here, look, okay, the system's now looking ahead on my calendar, okay, and it's looking at the demands of labor and down to individuals, as you can see. So depending on how much granularity you've got in here, we can look at this in terms of team as well as machine groups and machines. But you can see that in my demo business, I'm running a 5-day week, okay. I don't work Saturday and Sunday, okay. So depending on how good a quality on my my data is looking like, then this will give me a labor demand in green, okay, as opposed to a labor availability shown in yellow. So if I'm running right to the top of my what you can see as a 7.5-hour working day, then I will know whether or not Adam or Andy or Corey is available and can accommodate me in that employee work relationship. If you mark staff as being absent, you can say how long they're absent for, might be a week, whatever, and then obviously that the impact on that may mean that they can't necessarily be associated with those particular works orders. And as I said before, we can also highlight this in terms of machine, processes, setup, etc. Okay, machine groups, sorry, I meant to say, and therefore also for the particular machines themselves, circular saw, etc., test rigs, whatever they may be. Okay, so again, the system can look at these in a very sort of as far ahead, by the way, I hasten to add, as you may want to actually go. Okay, so I can look at the next 3 weeks, 4 weeks, 10 weeks, n months. Okay. So if we were to look at that in a sense of works order scheduling, let's have a quick look at that. Okay. So I don't know if I've necessarily got enough information on my demo system to give you a good example of this. Let me try this on one of the other screens. Some of them are a little bit too well overdue. Okay, so what this would enable you to do is effectively drag and drop a works order. If it was needing to be moved, okay, then you'd be in a position to relocate it, okay, onto a different part of your calendar, okay, and that, by moving it, by the way, what that would do is it would change the works order date, okay, so it would say, so you're not going to start it until, I don't know, whatever point in the calendar you're at, so I'm going to update your completion time. Okay, if I update the completion time on the works order and the works order is allied to a sales order, okay, then the great thing there is it will also update the date due for delivery to the customer. Okay, so everything is all connected. Okay, so if you're going to finish a works order late allied to a sales order, we may need to change your anticipated point of delivery. Okay, so again, everything is just communicating in a sort of a holistic manner. Okay, so again, these are, as I say, these things do not necessarily have to all be thought about and engaged with in one go. This, when I'm talking to some people, can be quite a revolutionary part of the sort of benefits of coming on board with Sicon. So it might not be something that they've previously had the power of controlling, might be something they've got ambitions to do. So as I say, you can just basically, and the modules can be bought separately, of course. You could just buy into works orders here and then add MRP, okay, or buy them to work collaboratively together to suit yourselves. Okay, I think for me, the main stage here was just to get you a sort of an overview at a very high level. I'm sure there's probably going to be some thoughts and questions running on the back of this. I can't sort of recommend enough for you to talk to Darren and the team at EBS. As I say, they've got a phenomenal level of experience as a Sage stroke Sicon BP to deliver solutions to your business operation. So certainly a more in-depth look, I'm sure, would be a recommendation to satisfy yourselves that those products are going to meet your expectation. Again, I just want to emphasize the fact that the Sicon portfolio again can be added to. So if you want to touch in on shop floor, as I mentioned, and barcoding and projects, then you can do that in a nicely controlled phased deployment. And needless to say, please, if you've got Sage, it's being end of life, as you probably already know. Again, can't encourage you enough to talk to Darren and the team at EBS. Get the best level of discount off those introductory level discount off those products, and that's going to be a win-win all round. But I'm going to pause there to allow Darren to summarize, but thanks again for being with me this morning. Hope that's been of help.
Thanks, Chris. I think you've said it all there. I mean, if there is anything, there's a call to action for you out there if you are using the Sage legacy manufacturing. And there is a bit of a time bomb on introductory sort of offers, which expire at the end of September. So, as I say, call to action really is for you to speak with us. We'll do everything in our power to assist you through the transition and make this work for you. The other thing to say is that if you wanted to have a more in-depth discussion stroke demonstration, then again we're happy to arrange that for you. Brilliant. We've got no questions, Chris. Okay. So thanks again for doing that. Thanks everyone for watching.
Very well.
Look out for further webinars that we're running, and as I said earlier, if you go to our YouTube channel, there are lots and lots of videos, including probably a little bit of an older one, but an SFDC recording. So if you wanted to know a little bit more about that, there is a video there already.
Great.
Right. As I said, thanks everyone.
Okay.
We hope to see you again soon.
Brilliant. Thanks, Darren.